I heard about this older lady. She came to church one Sunday morning. A friendly usher met her at the back door and asked her where she wanted to sit. She said, "I want to sit on the very front row." He said, "Oh no, ma'am, you don't want to sit there. Our pastor is very boring. He'll put you to sleep. Let me find you another seat." She looked appalled. She said, "Sir, do you know who I am?" He said, "No, ma'am." She said, "I am the pastor's mother." He hung his head in embarrassment. He finally looked up and said, "Ma'am, do you know who I am?" She said, "No." He said, "Thank God." Funny. I heard about this church service. One Sunday, everything was going great until a bolt of lightning hit the sanctuary. When the smoke cleared, Satan himself was standing behind the podium. People panicked and ran out as fast as they could. Everyone, that is, except one woman. She sat on the front row as calmly as can be. Satan was appalled. He said, "Lady, do you know who I am?" She said, "I sure do." He said, "Aren't you afraid of me?" She said, "Not in the least bit." He said, "Why not?" She said, "Why should I be? I've been married to your brother for 30 years. I heard about these two professional baseball players. They were discussing whether or not they thought there would be baseball up in heaven. They made an agreement that whoever died first would come back and tell the other if indeed there was baseball in heaven. A few months later, one of the players died. Just like promised, he came back and said to the other player, "I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is there is baseball up in heaven. The bad news is you're scheduled to pitch next Thursday." I heard about this man that died and went to heaven. St. Peter escorted him down this long hallway filled with many clocks. The hands on the clocks were all ticking at different speeds. Peter explained that every person has a clock. When they sin, the clock ticks. One clock was barely moving. That was Billy Graham's clock. Another clock was creeping along, Mother Teresa's clock. The man said curiously, "Can I see my clock?" Peter said, "Yeah, we keep yours in the office and use it as a fan." I heard about this husband and wife. They had been arguing and now they were giving each other the silent treatment. The man had to get up early and catch a flight the next day, and he needed his wife to wake him up. Not wanting to break the silence, he left a note on her side of the bed. It said, "Please wake me up at 5 a.m. The next morning, he got up at 8 o'clock, missed his flight. He was so upset, he went in to find out why she didn't wake him up. There was a note on his side of the bed. He opened it, it read, "Wake up, it's 5. Funny, I heard about these three men that were traveling together, a Hindu priest, a Jewish rabbi, and a televangelist. They stopped at a farmhouse for lodging. The farmer said, "I only have room for 2 of you in the house. Somebody will have to stay out in the barn." The Hindu priest said, "I'll do it." In a few minutes, there was a knock on the door. He said, "I can't stay out there. There's a cow, and cows are sacred in our religion." The Jewish rabbi said, "I'll do it." A few minutes, a knock on the door. He said, "I can't stay out there. There was a pig, and that wouldn't be kosher." The televangelist said, "Okay, I'll do it." A few minutes, there was a knock on the door. It was the cow and the pig. Funny, and I heard about this Baptist man named Bill. He liked to sneak off to the horse races and bet. And one day, after losing so much money, he saw a Catholic priest step onto the tracks and bless a horse. Sure enough, the horse won first place. He blessed another horse. That horse won again. Seeing this, Bill went to the ATM, took out all of his money. This time, he saw the priest not only touch the horse's forehead, but to touch his eyes, his ears, all of his legs. Feeling confident, he bet all of his money. But in the middle of the race, the horse fell over dead. Bill couldn't believe it. He went to the priest and said, "What in the world happened?" The priest said, "That's the problem with you Protestants. You don't know the difference between a blessing and the last rites." I heard about this man that was very stingy with his money. And just before his death, he made his wife promise him that she would have him buried with the $50,000 he had saved. The wife reluctantly agreed. And at the funeral, before they closed the casket, she snuck in this small wooden box. Her friend said, "Surely you didn't just bury the money, did you?" The wife said, "Of course I did. I'm a Christian. I can't lie." She said, "You mean you just buried $50,000? The wife said, "Yes, I did. I wrote a check." I heard about this college professor. He was going to prove to his class that there is no God. He said, "God, if you're real, then knock me off this platform. I'm giving you 15 minutes to do it." Every minute that went by, he taunted God. "I'm still here, God. I'm waiting." The last minute, 300-pound football player walking down the hallway overheard him, came running toward him full force, put his shoulder down, knocked the professor, sent him flying off the platform. The professor got up in a daze and said, "What in the world did you do that for?" The football player replied, "God said he was busy, so he sent me." I heard about this senior citizen. He was driving down the freeway in his brand new Corvette with the top down, going 80 miles an hour, when he saw flashing red lights in his rearview mirror from a state trooper. Without thinking about it, he floored it, took it up to 100 miles an hour. He heard the sirens behind him, finally came to his senses and pulled over. He said, "Officer, I am so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking." The trooper said, "Listen, it's Friday, 4 o'clock. My shift is over in 30 minutes. If you tell me a reason why you were speeding that I've never heard before, I'll let you go." The man thought about it and said, "Officer, years ago, my wife ran off with a state trooper, and I thought you were bringing her back." I heard about this lady. She surprised a burglar in her kitchen late one night. She was home alone, didn't have a weapon. She didn't know what she was going to do. She finally thought, "I'll quote a scripture verse." She shouted out Acts 2:38. The burglar suddenly froze in his tracks and wouldn't move. Soon the police arrived. They were amazed that a woman with no weapon could do this. They asked the burglar, "What was it about that scripture that had such an effect on you?" He said, "Scripture? What scripture? I thought she said she had an axe and 238s. I heard about this little girl. She asked her mother how the human race got started. The mother explained how God made Adam and Eve and they had children and on and on. Here we are today. A few days later, she asked her father the same question. He explained how many years ago there were monkeys. Little by little, they became more like people. Now here we are. Confused, she went back to her mom and said, "Mom, you said God created people. Dad said we came from monkeys. How can that be?" She said, "Oh, honey, that's easy. I told you about my side of the family. Dad told you about his." Hold on, honey. And one day, Adam said to God, "Why did you make Eve so beautiful?" God said, "So you would love her." He said, "Well, why did you give her such long, flowing hair?" God said it again, "So you would love her." He said, "Well, God, why did you give her such a great figure?" God said the same thing, "So you would love her." Adam said, "All right, God, you made her so beautiful, so attractive. Why'd you make her so dumb?" God said, "That's easy, Adam, so she would love you." And all the ladies said amen. I heard about these three pastors. They were in a boat together one day fishing. One of the pastors said, "We never get to let our hair down. Let's each tell the area that we struggle in the most, our greatest sin, so we can pray for each other." The first pastor said, "I hate to admit this, but I have a problem with gambling. Sometimes I sneak out at night and gamble." The second pastor said, "I'm ashamed to admit this, but I have a problem with cheating. I hardly ever pay my taxes." The third pastor sat there silently. They waited and waited, and he wouldn't budge. They said, "We're not leaving until you tell us your greatest sin." He said, "All right, my greatest sin is with gossip, and I can't wait to get off this boat." I heard about this little girl. She was sitting in her grandfather's lap. She noticed how wrinkled his face was. As she contemplated the difference between his and hers, she said, "Granddaddy, did God make you?" He kind of laughed and said, "Yes, honey, he made me a long time ago." She then asked, "Did God make me?" He said, "Yes, he made you just a little while ago." She thought about it a moment and said, "Granddaddy, God's getting better, isn't he?" Something funny, and my brother Paul gave me this joke. I would never normally tell it. It's way too corny, but you can blame him. But I heard about this blonde lady. She was outside doing yard work with her weed eater when she accidentally cut off her cat's tail. He was in the bushes. She didn't see him. She felt so badly. She grabbed the tail, grabbed the cat, said to her friend, "I'm going to Walmart." Her friend said, "Walmart? Why Walmart?" She said, "Hello, they're the biggest retailer in the world." I heard about this man. He was driving through an intersection that was monitored by cameras. If you ran the light or broke the law in any way, you'd receive a ticket in the mail. So he made sure to go through it extra slowly, but he noticed the camera flashed and took his picture. He thought, "That's not right." He turned around and drove through it even more slowly. Once again, the camera flashed. He thought, "This thing is messed up. They cannot give me a ticket." Out of spite, he drove through it 3 more times, each time waving at the camera with a big smile. A week later, he received 5 tickets in the mail for not wearing his seatbelt. I heard about this new police recruit. He was taking his final exam. He was in front of this large classroom. The sergeant asked him, "What would you do if you had to arrest your own mother-in-law?" Without missing a beat, he said, "Call for backup."